their liberty or their rights, clearly something's wrong. Now, if a person is deceased, if they had a nervous breakdown and went crazy, if they're mentally ill, if they're injured or sick or sedated, they have no way to defend themselves against the things that I just described. And so Prince got caught up into that type of vacuum by the way that he died and was found. They claim that something about whatever prescription medications he was taking was cause for his death, meaning that they're saying that he died, but nobody's really responsible for it but him, because he either misused it or he took too much of it or it was the wrong prescription or whatever, but he took it. Nobody killed him. Nobody murdered him, allegedly. But nobody really knows, because he was found alone, and he was found inside of an elevator. My relatives are people who will take advantage of their own kin. They have always exploited the dead. Before people can even go through a proceeding, go through a funeral or anything, they're usually there showing up to see what possessions they can get that belong to somebody, when there's nobody to have to be accountable to. Some of them will even take things that don't belong to them and say, hey, that was mine and that person had it. I was just getting it back. Or they'll say, he gave this to me. But what if they didn't give it to him? How do you know? And part of the whole basis for documenting things and getting lawyers to show your intention is to make sure that people cannot come in and do things like that. My siblings technically are only my half-siblings. I'm the one that's from the true biological seed. I'm the firstborn. The rest of my siblings have different fathers and the same mother. And so they're actually my half-siblings technically, biologically. But I love them like they are my 100% biological siblings. But they have no permission whatsoever to take ownership or possession or gain from anything that I have created, because they didn't help contribute to it. They don't know what it is, and they didn't support it. And some of them will even collect people's stuff and say, well, I gave it to your nephew, or I gave it to your niece so they would know who their uncle was, so that it will help them because I know that's what you wanted. So they can exploit you by taking something and then making it seem like somebody younger was the beneficiary. Nobody whatsoever at this stage in my life has permission to be a beneficiary of anything that I have or have done. That means not the state. That means not this community. That means no siblings or relatives. That means no friends. Nobody. And I took the steps and procedures to make sure that was known, because I have written a customized legal policy of my intention for my works. If people have not supported you, if they're not trying to help you be who you are, what right do they think they have in the first place to be trying to take ownership of anything? But in Columbus, Georgia, part of they can overwhelm your whole life and take your life and your liberty from you is to take your possessions, your earnings, and your freedom from you, which is actually also unconstitutional. But if you're dead or injured or sick or the things that I've described, how could you defend yourself? You cannot. Prince was a person that took us into another place in the universe. I don't think we will ever have another artist like that. This guy could take something that seems morally wrong and corrupted, something that's naughty and nasty and vain, and make you say, well, that's wrong and I usually don't like it, but for you, I'll consider this. Because he was that magnetic and spectacular. There was something about him that made all of us know him. Now, his siblings are in a dispute over his estate. And I don't know if it's anything that's aggressive where people are fighting about who should get what. But a lot of people who have died across the entertainment industry and the wealth sector have had these awful, awful disputes within their family about who gets what. Some girlfriend shows up, some ex-wife, some current wife, somebody that's just a parent of a child they have in common. All kinds of stuff come up where people are saying, well, wait a minute, we have a right to some of this too. And when the man is not there to defend himself, who takes care of that for him? Artists are supposed to be a bridge for the world. We're supposed to be a bridge for one another. Prince has passed and crossed that bridge to wherever we go when we leave this living life. And we're supposed to be an extension of the bridge that he paved the way to and was unable to finish. The bridge into the next generation. And we're supposed to assure that we do things to make sure that it is understood what his intention may have been and what art is really supposed to be for the world and culture that we live in. People don't realize how much art contributes to the economy, the politics, and the social fabric of the world in which we live. The entertainment industry creates the part of our lives that we want when we're not working. We work for what we want to be able to do when we're not working. And the creative class is who makes that possible. People spend more wealth on the things that help them be inspired, be entertained, be spiritually nourished, and what have you, whether it's from faith, pop rock, soft rock, R&B, or whatever genre, whether it's performance art, creative art, traditional art, dance, or what have you. Music, all of it provides economic reinforcement for the world in which we live. But a lot of people are masquerading as artists who really aren't artists. Just because you're a person that knows how to create something, just because you have talent does not mean that you are an artist. An artist is supposed to take human thought, human evolution into a place that people have not yet considered, to get you to try something that maybe you haven't tried yet, to think about something that you haven't thought about yet, to make each generation unique into itself so that creatively every generation defines what they stood for and what it was all about when they lived specifically. The artists, like Prince and the other creatives, are culture makers. And as an artist and creative type myself my whole life and a business person, I know what it's like to be taken advantage of. There's always somebody in the industry that's out there that can take advantage of somebody. Industry people, other artists, relatives, friends, people who claim they found something, people who claim that something was left behind, people who claim something was given to them or what have you. But what did you do with it? Why did you want it in the first place? So sometimes people are making ways for their materials to end up in the hands of people who they have no association with so that they can receive some gain for something that they need or would find interest in, rather than be exploited by those that are closest to you. All of us are vulnerable to unforeseen incidents, and it might not be anything associated with death, but things just kind of come up. And we're supposed to prepare ourselves in a manner so that we can account for ourselves. But when we're in a society that has become accustomed to invasions of privacy and people wanting to intrude to a level where you don't have the sanctity of your person and your possessions, we are all being violated. If you're just going to be put into a situation where you obtain material items or whatever the possessions are that you know are of value in your life, and people are setting you up to run you into a tragedy, to depossess you and take your stuff so that they can use it for personal gain, something is fundamentally wrong. And so when there's trouble in the U.S. Copyright Office and the Office of Patents and Trademark, where they don't have enough people and qualified personnel to really handle the amount of cases there are, because it takes specific kinds of people to know what intellectual property really is and understand a real creation in the first place, it becomes more difficult. And when people are destroying things the way that we see things being destroyed right now, the origin of certain things can be lost through destruction. You can lose track of who really created something, who really designed it. A lot of people have preyed upon me for things to write songs, write music, come up with creative concepts, architecture, television commercials, and other forms of creative use of art. It's a pirate genre. And if you don't have some kind of way to protect yourself, and if you don't have a way to innovate and utilize some of it where you can take it to the market first, you're probably going to be exploited. A lot of people live and survive off of what creatives make possible, people like Prince. And somebody can take something that they stole and build a story around it and make it seem like you had a relationship with them, or that you knew something about them, or that they knew something about you that was never true. For example, when I was in high school, I was standing in a hallway, and one of my friends was pranking around and fooling around, and he ran up behind me and hugged me from behind, and I was eating this burger or something. And they snapped the picture right then. Well, he was just fooling around. There was absolutely nothing associated with intimacy or personal closeness like that at all. But it looked like it could be if you only saw the picture. Well, somebody with that picture can make it seem like, well, maybe you were gay, or maybe you were this, or maybe you were that, or that you had some relationship or some secret life, and they can scandalize your name and reputation based upon something that never actually happened, just because they have something with you in it. I've been careful about who I take pictures with and how I take pictures, both for still photography and motion photography, over the course of my life, because I learned very early on what people can do. A woman can say she slept with you. A woman can say you raped her. And here's the proof. Here's the picture that we knew one another. Anything. Or if they can find something in your possessions that seems like you had a relationship with somebody. For example, some woman might throw the best pair of panties that a man has ever seen on stage, and he just kept it as some type of treasure to talk about concert life for whatever reason. Or it could have just been a personal acquaintance that left her stuff with him. Or it could have been his girlfriend's or his wife's stuff or whatever. Well, somebody who gets possession of that can use that to build a story around it. My relatives stole a lot of my art. My paintings, my sculptures, my personal writing, my music, my books, and all kinds of things, my clothes, my bags, and other unique, unusual things. And another thing that people have to consider is that when you take a picture, whatever is in that picture becomes valuable. And so if somebody hangs on to what they saw you with in a picture depiction or background, that becomes valuable because it's with you in the picture, and because it can validate that you were there and that it's real, and it becomes a treasure. And so my question for my relatives was like, look, you didn't support me, you didn't believe in me, all you ever tried to do was tear me down. If you wanted something, you could have talked to me about it and I could have given you something nice. Why did you take that from me? Well, who knows what their motivations are? Most people who take something without permission that they intend to tell a story about or get gain from are taking advantage of somebody, or they wouldn't have taken it. They could have walked up and said, well, can I tell a story about you? No, they didn't want to get caught. They didn't want to have anybody to answer to. People can tell people things about the meanings of your work in your life that might not be true. They can draw their own conclusions. They can fill their own blanks about your intentions. If you're not hearing from the real person, you really don't know. It's all a scandal. Vincent van Gogh was just in a situation, the artist, that is most celebrated for the psychiatric aspect of what art is supposed to be for